So, hello, welcome everybody. My name is Agnes Molnar, and I am here with you from Hungary, Central Europe, this morning or afternoon your time. I'm going to talk about search and why you need to invest into search and how to start this journey, because I've been working with search for over, I don't know, many years, 15-ish or even more. And I can hear it a lot that search sucks, but people and organizations don't know what to do with that, or if there is any option to improve or enhance search. And today I'm going to talk about this journey. Thank you for the sponsors of this event. I am really glad to be here, at least virtually. I really hope that next year we can be together in person again. Join the quiz of the conference and you can win prizes, and the drawing will be tomorrow at the conference. As I said, my name is Agnes Molnar, and I work with Search Explained, and we are located in Hungary, but we also have colleagues and partners in Germany, also in Singapore. We work with a couple of partners, and our focus has been on search. And today I'm not going to talk about Office 365 or SharePoint specific search knowledge or information. Rather, I would like to share some generic overview of the whole journey, independently and regardless from the content. So usually when someone or some organization deploys search and installs search or SharePoint or purchases Office 365 and move content and create content there, everyone expects search to just work out of the box, and usually this is the communication from Microsoft as well, that you have the platform is ready, and you can use it, and search works. Unfortunately, this is in most cases not the case, because your organization is unique, your people are unique, obviously, your content is unique, how you use the content is unique, and actually your organization is unique. Therefore, an out of the box and the default search experience cannot fit your expectations, which leads to user confusion and a lot of negative feeling and a negative impression about search. So this is why we can hear a lot that search sucks and nobody knows what to do with that. The first thing I always tell about search is much more than technology itself. Yes, we have a search engine. Yes, we can configure the backend. We can customize the front end. We can do a lot with search. But basically, it's all about helping human beings, all about helping the end users. And the end users are everywhere. End users are the ones who create the content. End users are the one who curates, edits, approves the content. And also end users are the one who want to find the content in the end of the story. And this is the end goal. This is what we have to help to finding the content. And this is why in most cases I say that a search project is never only about search. It's about findability. It's about helping the users. And it's much more than just customizing and configuring the search engine. So basically, the way we do, or I do, all of the projects and all of the search implementations and enhancements basically have 4 pillars or 4 major components. First of all, you have to have a plan. You have to know where you are going. You have to know what you want to achieve with search. If you don't know that, then, well, you know that search is not good enough. Search is not satisfying the user's expectations today. But if you don't know where you want to go, then it will be, and it cannot be good enough. You have to think about the user experience. You have to plan the user experience. You have to test it. You have to evaluate it. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. It's always super important to collect ideas, to discuss those ideas, and to understand what the users really need. And number 3, you need to have authoritative sources. You have to know which sources you trust. And with Office 365, it's both easier and harder. Easier because content in SharePoint Online and OneDrive already crawled out of the box, so the content is there. You don't have to do anything to get it there. But it's also harder because with all that content and, Teams also stores the content in SharePoint sites behind Teams. So that content is also included in the search index, and SharePoint and OneDrive and everything. So with that, there is a huge challenge because the content is heterogeneous. You have many different types of content. You have many different classes of content. And of course, every user might have different expectations as well. So you have to know what sources, what sites, what documents you should trust enough to include in search, or what you have to exclude from search. And also now with the search connectors, it's also important to discuss what systems to connect to search outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. And last but not least, number 4 is you have to know the metadata, and you have to understand the metadata, because the data and the metadata is the most important part of search. Let's start with the user experience first. Usually this is what we start, because it's easy to understand and easy to discuss with everybody in every organization. No, not easy in a way that everyone knows what they expect, but easy in a way that everyone knows what we say when we talk about search pages or search. So the search box or the results or all those kind of things. And it's much easier to start the journey this way and then drill down into the deeper and deeper details. So once you know that, okay, you want to improve search, in most cases this starts with the user experience. So let me show you a couple of examples. Not that your search should look like exactly the same, but just to give you some ideas that beyond out-of-the-box search, you can do custom things, both on-prem and in SharePoint Online, and also in other systems if you like. So the first example, you can see this is a search results page. This is customized. We have custom refiners here. The display of the results is also custom, but the concept is still there. The concept is that this is a search page. This one is a customized search landing page. So this is where the users can enter their queries. This one, again, is a custom search page in a different layout. And a couple of more. This one is from the Danish National Police. I am allowed to talk about them. They have been our clients. And what you can see here is on the right side, you can see those documents and all those documents are pulled together based on search. They are using content types very heavily with custom metadata. So this way it's easier to pull content based by search based on the content types and based on the metadata they use. This one is also the Danish police. And what you can see on the top navigation is a couple of menu items, but actually all those menu items are search. So if you click on any of them, it brings you to a search results page, which already has a predefined query, which already knows who the user is. Therefore, it can display targeted results or targeted documents to that user. So, for example, if you click on action cards, the first item on this menu, you will be redirected to a search page which displays action cards, which are related to the district that you are working in as a police officer, in this case. Okay, this one is a very similar one. If you click on any of those items, then it brings you to a search-driven page. And this one is a custom search-driven page in another system. And as you can see, it pulls together information about a country, or it can be a topic, it can be a client, it can be a customer, a product, a service, whatever that you store information about. And then that information can be pulled together, and as you can see, it can be search driven. So there is a search box on top, but this search box does not drive this page. That is the global search box. So if you enter any queries to the top search box, then it drives you to the central search site. But this page itself has web parts that pull together search driven information. The reason I'm showing you these pages and these search-driven pages is just because I want to show you that when we talk about search, in many cases, this is not about the search box. In many cases, this is not about the results page. In many cases, these are search-driven applications. Search can be used to much more than just having the search box and the results page. We can use search to feed applications. Okay. The next one is to define the sources where you want to pull the content from. And as I said, in case of Office 365, we have out-of-the-box content in search. We don't have to do anything. However, it's important to decide what to exclude, what not to display in search. Why? Because in many cases, documents in OneDrive might be totally irrelevant, or documents stored in a Teams site. I've been working with many organizations where permissions are critical, and you only have permissions and rights only to the content that is absolutely necessary. In this case, it's easier because search also respects permissions, which means you cannot see anything that you do not have access to. But for many nonprofit organizations, the policy is everything is shared across the whole organization. Everything is shared with everyone in the organization. And in this case, it means if you search for something, you get everything from the organization. So in many cases, this means you get a lot of totally irrelevant results. One example is if I work for a company if I work for a global company and I am sitting in the Singapore office. And if I'm searching for, I don't know, maternity leave policy, most probably what I would like to get is the maternity leave policy in Singapore. I don't care about the maternity leave policy in Germany or in the US or anywhere else. What I need is the one in Singapore. But if I do have access to all of those documents, if I can technically access the maternity leave policy in Germany, the maternity leave policy in the US, if I do a search, it's important to either only display the one that is relevant to me, the maternity leave policy in Singapore, or highlight it and boost it to the top of the search results so that I don't have to go through dozens of results and maternity leave policies in different countries before I find the right one. This is why it's important to define what sources I want to pull in to search. The other example is that in many organizations, it's important to pull in non-SharePoint and non-Office 365 content to search as well. So this is why it's a good news that we already have connectors to search, and which is absolutely good. But it's important to know that you can do that. But the more content you pull in, the more the probability is that you pull in more irrelevant content as well. So it's always a very nice challenge to find the right balance between including enough content to search, but not including too much content to search, so not providing too much irrelevant results to the users. So usually I say that the number one and very first thing you can do to increase search and the relevance in search is to attend your content. And the reason I'm saying, and I already mentioned the metadata and everything, but how you tag the documents, how you store the documents, what is the information architecture that you have, what the site structure is, what the library structure is. These are all super important from a findability perspective, but also these are all the informations that search can use to filter the information or filter out the information. So if you want to improve search, I always recommend to start with the content. And this does not mean that you have to tag all the content that you have with dozens of tags. You should find the most important ones, and you should find the ones that provide the most value to search. And as I said, there is a paradox. The more content you add to search, the more irrelevant content, the more garbage you also add to search. So it's important to filter out what is irrelevant to the users. One example, I worked with a company who crawled all of the content that they have, not only in SharePoint, but also they crawled a lot of file shares. This was on SharePoint on-prem. They crawled a lot of file share content to search. And when they did a search for a name of a person, they found a lot of Christmas party pictures because all of those pictures were tagged with the persons on the picture. Somebody stored that in a network drive. So if I did a search for my manager, I found those Christmas party pictures. Most probably, if I use enterprise search, I don't want to see those Christmas party pictures as the first results, or I don't want to see them at all. Instead, of course, if I do a search for the name of my manager, I would like to see the documents he or she has been working on, or I would like to see the projects. I would like to see the personal information, the contact information, email address, phone number, those kind of things, and not the latest Christmas party pictures. Another example, and this is super important to understand, I already mentioned permissions. If you have access to something that is included in the search index, you can find it. If you have no access to something, even if it's stored in the search index, there is no way that search will display to you in any way. Which is good, because if you have sensitive information or sensitive content, then of course you don't want the users to find that content. That's absolutely fine. But the opposite is also true. In some cases, it's not good if the users find too much. One example, and this happened a lot actually in the last couple of years, but one of the most painful ones was when I worked with a bank, a financial organization in Europe, and they had SharePoint Online, crawled SharePoint Online content. They were very happy with search, and in the next phase, they decided to crawl the network drives. And you can imagine, being a financial organization, they had millions and millions of documents in those network drives. So we crawled in that content from network drives, modified and updated the UI a little bit, created new result sources, created new search verticals for that content. So once we rolled it out, everyone was happy and they really liked that. They did not have, this was years ago, they did not have leave the context of SharePoint. They could do search in SharePoint by working in SharePoint, and they could find their files and documents stored in a network drive. However, a couple of days later, I got a call from the project manager, and he was yelling on me on the phone. And what he said was, we have to shut it down because everyone can find everything, and this is terrible. So we went there to see what's going on, and this is what the problem was. In that network drive, they had somewhere deep down a folder where they stored an Excel sheet with all the management salaries. And technically speaking, this Excel sheet and actually everything in that folder was all employee public. Before search and before we connected that network drive to search, nobody went there or nobody found those documents. But as soon as we connected it to search, that Excel sheet was crawled into search. And if you did a search for the name of your manager, that Excel sheet was in the top 3 results. And you can imagine people are curious, so they started to open that Excel sheet, and those clicks told the search engine that, hey, this is an important document, so therefore the relevance of this document started to increase even more. So people started to call each other and people started to talk about it until the management figured out what's going on. So that was the moment when they shut down search. Being a financial organization, they started an emergency project instantly to clean up the permissions on their network drives, on SharePoint as well, although SharePoint was new, so it was okay. But they cleaned up the permissions on the network drive. It took them a couple of months until we could crawl it again to search. And of course, they tested not only the permissions, but also from search, they tested who can find what by search before they opened it again to the user. So it took a long month until we could open it again. The conclusion is, when you add content to search, make sure that you add enough, but you don't add too much, and the permissions are clear. And the permissions have governance, and there is somebody who is responsible for not only the content, but also the permissions on the content. And before you add new content to search, you have to analyze and evaluate that content. And usually when you do that analysis of the content, we say that you have three options. Many cases, a search project also means a content cleanup project, or at least a content evaluation project. So the first option that you have is keep and freeze, which means you keep the content as is. You don't have to modify it. It's good enough to be included in search. It has all the metadata that are needed. It has clear permissions, and you can just crawl it and maybe do some changes in search. But basically, you can use the content as is. The second option is delete the content or archive a content, or if you cannot modify the content, at least exclude from search. In many cases, you do not need content being included in search. For example, outdated documents. In most cases, you just want to find the most recent version, the most recent approved policy, template, procedure, whatever. In some cases, of course, it is important to find the old versions or the archive or the previous versions of those documents, but in many cases, this is not the case. So you can archive them, or you can flag them to be archived, or you can exclude them from search. Of course, if you use an archive system and if you want those documents to be included in search, then you have to crawl that archive system as well. Otherwise, users won't be able to find the archive content. And the third option is you keep the content, you want it to be included in search, but you have to reorganize the content. You have to restructure the content, or you have to add additional metadata. This is one of the, well, actually, making this decision is not easy, what you should do with which content. But this one always has a very significant impact on search. So it's always something to consider. This decision is always important to make before you start a search project. And since we are talking about content sources, it's also important to decide if you want to add external content sources to search, and if you want to do that, which content you want to add. And basically, to be able to do that, we usually use this way to decide. There is always an effort to add external content to search, which means development effort, which means, of course, maintenance effort, which means planning effort, governance, and a lot of other things. This is the horizontal scale on this chart. And the vertical one is the impact of including that content in search. So, and which means the value. So, for example, on this picture, you can see a couple of content sources which have a low effort, like a low onboarding effort, and a high impact. For example, I and J, like the design patterns and technical data sheets. These are easy to crawl into search, but have a huge impact in the value of search. So therefore, most probably those are good candidates to start with. At the same time, for example, C is the highest effort, the historical projects is the highest effort, and the relative value is quite low. So most probably it can be left to the future or not included in search at all. And if you do this analysis, there is a methodology to do that. So this chart is an oversimplification of the methodology. But basically, you name it. You evaluate the content sources, how much effort it needs to add that content source to search, and how much impact this additional content means in search, how much improvement, how much user satisfaction. And based on this analysis, you decide what should be the next one to add search. Yes, and it's always, of course, it's always a process. So it cannot happen overnight. So if you make a decision that, okay, you want to include, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 systems into search, it always takes time. It cannot happen immediately. All right, the next, why I have it 2 times. Okay, sorry. The next thing to talk about is the metadata and the content classification. Why is it important? If we take just a very simple SharePoint results page, you can see that we have a couple of custom filters here, like document type, industry, taxation type, department. And we on the right side, we also display that information. We have search suggestions. Of course, we can, those results are already pre-filtered to a specific scope. And everything that is displayed here, everything that is used as a filter or sorting or refining the results, everything is metadata. So whatever you want to do with search, you need good metadata to that and good structure of the content. And this is why I usually say that metadata is the soul of search. This is the center, the heart of search. How you create that metadata is a challenging question. AI and machine learning can have more and more, but what I still can see is that you cannot do that without human resources. So at least someone has to review and curate the tagging and the metadata on the content as well. Okay, so the reason I'm showing this, if you remember, I showed you a couple of search-driven applications, like the one when we pulled together information about Japan as a country. And those applications can be found everywhere and can be created everywhere. So in your organization, most probably there are a couple of use cases when the users don't want to search, but they want to find information about topics, about customers, about invoices, I don't know, which can be a good search-driven application. And one very classic search-driven application that everyone or almost everyone uses is Amazon. If you do a search in Amazon, what you get is products. You can see suggestions. You can see those pictures of, in this example, I did a search for a bag. And you can see that there are pictures of those bags. I can instantly see the most important metadata about every bag. In this case, since I am shopping, one of the most important metadata fields is the price, but also I can see the name, I can see some description, the rating of each product, which technically speaking search results. And on the left side, those refiners, are used in this context. So I can search for women or men bags or luggage or I don't know, grocery bags. So what type of bag I'm searching for. And also I can instantly filter for the products that ship to my country. So basically, in this case, I have a specific search application which supports this specific case about purchasing something. In case of your organization, this might be a help desk center to support customers. This can be an HR application. This can be I don't know, in many cases, search is a very important part of knowledge management, of course. So you have to find a lot of applications where the users want to find something that might be a good search-driven application. One more example is Google. People like to say that they want Google search. I don't have time to talk about why you do not want to have Google search, but one of the most important things is that Google has over 3,000 engineers working on the ranking model only, 3,000 worldwide. When I do in-person trainings, I always ask people to raise your hand if your organization has at least one person, one full-time employee working on the search ranking. And usually there is nobody. Sometimes there is one or a half, but you just don't have the same resources. And Google has a lot of AI behind its engine. Plus, when you do a search in Google, then what you actually want to find is a good enough result. If you are searching for a bag, you want to find a good enough bag. If you are searching for a hotel or a flight, if you want to travel, then you want to find a good enough flight or a good enough hotel. In enterprise search, good enough is never good enough. When you are doing a search, you always, in most cases, you are searching for a specific document, a specific policy. It's not enough to find a good enough policy. It's not enough to find one policy. I want to find that one particular policy. So that's a huge difference between enterprise search and Google search. And the reason I'm showing you this Google search result is Google is considered to be an everything search. So it's a generic search engine which finds everything. But also Google uses a lot of additional information, and Google also uses a lot of AI. And behind the scenes, it's a huge and complex search engine. And what you can see on the picture is the same search I did on the previous Amazon example, searching for the word bag, B-A-G. And you can see on Google that we have those classic 10 blue lines results on the left side. However, those are not products really. So if I click on handbags collection for women, I go to a website where I can find information about those products. Maybe I can purchase those products, but these are not the products. In the previous example, the search results are the products themselves. So that's a huge difference. The second reason I'm showing you the Google result page is the right side. If you can see on the top right corner, I am logged in here. And also based on my IP address, Google knows where I am sitting right now. And if I do a search for bag, B-A-G, there is a tiny village in Hungary called B-A-G. So based on my IP address, and you can try it. If you do a search for BAG in Google, most probably you are not getting this Hungarian village because you are not sitting in Hungary at the moment. But if you have a chance and travel to Hungary, use your computer from an IP address which are in Hungary, you will get this village as a result in Hungary. So the search engine knows a lot about you. And if you want to transform this message to the enterprise context, maybe your IP address is not as important in the enterprise search context. However, just consider this. When you are logged into SharePoint, the system knows a lot about you. It knows your username, it knows your location, office location, your department, your job title, whatever you store in the user profile. And that user profile information can be used in a similar way. It can be used to suggest, it can be used to provide specific information. So one example I used earlier was the maternity leave policy. And if I have Singapore on my user profile, and also we tag the documents with the countries, so we know which maternity leave policy belongs to Singapore, then these two information can be connected by search. If I work in the Singapore office and there is a maternity leave policy for Singapore as a country, if I do a search for maternity leave policy, the maternity leave policy for Singapore is the one that I will find by search. So the same concept can be used in enterprise search as well, of course in a different way as we do in Google, but the concept is the same. You can use information about the user. And if you have the information on the user profile and also you have the information on the content, those can be connected together. So if I want to summarize this, then I usually say that we have to know the user, we have to know the content, and we also have to know the context in which the user does the search to support the user as much as possible. And I left the search strategy and plan as the last, although it might be the most important part of your journey, because you have to know where you are going to. So now you know the content, now you know what options you have and what requirements the users have for the user experience. Now it's time to talk about the plan. And it's always important to have a search strategy. And when I say search strategy, do not think about search strategy as a huge, more 100 pages document that nobody reads in the end. Search strategy is something that you have to have in your mind when you move forward. You have to know the goals that you have, what you want to achieve in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, maybe 5 years. It's very hard to look ahead to 3 or 5 years, especially in the cloud, but it's not impossible. And of course, the strategy is not a detailed action plan. You just have to know the direction. You have to know the way where you want to go. And this way, it will be much easier to achieve your goals, and it will be much easier to measure those goals if you are going to the right direction or not. All right. And of course, you will need people to get everything done. There are different types of people who work with search, and usually, and as I said at the beginning, you have to support people with search, and you have to support all different expertise level, both in the domain expertise and the search expertise. So there might be people who are new to the domain. In the bottom left corner of this chart, they are new to the domain and new to search. They are totally lost. you have to support these people as well. You have to educate them, you have to show them examples. But at the same time, there are also people who are experts in their domain and also experts in search in the top right corner of this chart. These people need totally different help. And most probably you can use those people as champions or to help you to communicate search to everyone else. So you have to identify those groups of users and to identify the way, what kind of help each of those groups really need. And last but not least, if you define the search requirements, what you want to achieve, there are a lot of things, and it could be even more, what you have to define as search requirements. And usually by the time we have search requirements, we are talking about hundreds and hundreds of requirements, of course, under different categories with different priorities. This picture is just an oversimplified categorization of the requirements. It's also important to measure success. It's important to measure how good search is, how much the users like it, what they want to update or what they want to change, there might be some things they want to get rid of. And the easiest way to do that is to consider search as a product and not a one-time project. And this way, search has a product life cycle. It's not just a one-time project. It's not just you decide, okay, we need a search project. We have 6 months from now, and in 6 months we want to get done. This of course, this can be a phase, this can be a project, but in the long run, you should consider the whole life cycle of search. And this life cycle, of course, should include change management. It should include tracking. It should include measuring, taking actions, how to change if some analysis shows that something has to be updated or changed. And also, this life cycle plan also should include communication to the users. So, for example, if a group of users tells you that they want to add an additional refiner to search or an additional filter, you should communicate, thank you for the feedback. We are evaluating this and evaluating if and when it can be added to the roadmap. And if you decide to make it happen, and if you do an analysis, okay, it should take X time and resources, and when you want to do that, then you can get back to the users and say, look, we are going to add this new refiner to search, but we cannot do that right now. We are going to add it to the version 3 months from now. And then the users know what to expect. And even more, they know that they are being listened and they are being heard, so that they provide you more and more feedbacks. So communication is important. This is what is also important to mention. So as you can see, about those 4 major things and components of search, I could talk about them for days, and you can see it's a quite complex topic. But it's a really a beautiful journey and a very logical journey, which pulls together all the different aspects of your organization, including the content, including the people, the culture of your organization, the legal requirements of the organization. But basically, this is the four main pillars of this journey. You have to have a plan. You have to know the requirements. You have to know where you are going to. You have to identify the content sources, what you have today and what you want to pull in later. And you also have to know the metadata, which you have today, and also, again, what you might need in the future. So that's what I wanted to show you today. And I'm checking Teams if there is any question there. Rico is asking, could you share some sample business goals? It depends. Sometimes a business goal is to, for example, to have an application where it's easy to find users by expertise. In other cases, a business goal is to shorten the time what it takes to find, I don't know, funds management documents. In other cases, the goal is to reduce the number of systems a user have to visit until he or she finds a content. It's super important that IT is involved and always have to be involved into search projects, but search is usually not driven by IT. It's always a search project or a search implementation, or this journey always starts with a business pain point. It always hurts. Something always hurts before we start. Any other questions? Rene, maybe you saw something that I don't see. I'm checking Teams now.
No, I think no other questions so far. Did monitor, but it's been quiet now after lunch. Everyone's still digesting their lunch. Probably.
You are after lunch. Okay, I'm just drinking my morning coffee. So
good. But any other questions? Post them right now while we've still got Agnes here with us. So Agnes, maybe one short question. How or what kind of recommendation would you have for small organizations which do not have some dedicated resource available or even a lot of resources available? How can they still make effective use of search?
Yes, the good news is there are always what we call quick wins, which means there is, well, it's always something to improve. What I recommend is, and what I always do with small organizations, with small budget, with small team, is take a look at what you have. So one example is if you already store, I don't know, invoices in SharePoint, and those invoices already have information like the customer name or invoice date or, I don't know, country, whatever. That information can be used in search in a very easy way. So creating a search application that displays all the invoices for a customer, but also pulls in, I don't know, contracts for the same customer from a different SharePoint library or from different libraries. Multiple libraries can be also used, and also pulls in, I don't know, technical documentations or anything that have been communicated to that customer. It's relatively easy. What you have to know is learning. So if you do not have resources to hire someone from outside, that's fine. If you learn those basic concepts in search, usually I say search is like a Lego. You can put together those pieces and those building blocks, and you can build beautiful things about it. So if you are a small organization, be open-minded, learn, and find those tiny pieces that can be put together to make it better.